Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It's Friday. We are closing out yet another week. And we got a 2-for-1 last night, John. And I'm not talking about two playoff games in two different leagues. I'm talking about two playoff games in one last night with 4 overtimes, almost into a fifth between the Hurricanes and the Panthers last night. It was one of those things that was pretty remarkable. I actually fell asleep because, as you know, that's what us old people do is we just sleep. 9 o'clock comes around and it starts to get a little bit tiring. But no, I fell asleep, woke up after a significant amount of rest, and was able to watch the rest of the game. It was pretty awesome.
So from puck drop to the end of the game was nearly 6 hours. So during that time, you could have flown from Boston to Los Angeles, or you could have watched The Godfather and Godfather Part 2.
That's true. Either of which, I mean, maybe you could have flown to Los Angeles while watching The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. Hey, I'm always thinking about comfort and entertainment when I'm flying cross country like that. So, yeah. But anyways, it's one of the things that just makes playoff hockey so incredible and so unique, and something that I just hope the league, and I'm not saying that they are, I mean, they would be foolish if they are, but I hope they never approach the subject of changing playoff overtime. You know me, I hate the shootout. I can begrudgingly live with it during the regular season. I understand why they introduced it. I think it's far run its course, but hey, I can, I'm okay moving forward with everything fine. I hope they change it, but I can live with it if they don't. If they decide to start changing overtime in the playoffs, count me out. It's just such an incredible thing to watch these two teams just like battle and really, I mean, set the tone for what should be an incredible series.
Would you be okay with them going 4-4 in overtime or
No.
in the second overtime,
No.
or you just want to stay as
5-on-5? No, yeah,
Okay.
Nothing changed. It is like, look, I think 4-on-4 overtime in the regular season is, excuse me, I think it makes a little bit more sense because at the same time, like, the playoffs are one thing. You don't, I don't know. I get that you want to determine a winner more often than not. So I do understand why. In the playoffs, you're playing until someone wins regardless. And I think the best way to do that is keep the game as pure as possible. And that is 5-on-5 and just play it like it's a regular period, except, well, the intensity ramps up because, well, the next time the puck hits the back of the net, that team's going to win.
Yeah, and the whole thing, too, in the regular season is you got to have some limits, right? Because there's 82 games and there's travel involved, and the two teams then separate after that game, right? So one might be still at home, the other one may have to get on a plane and fly cross country to another game the next day or 2 days later. Whereas at least in the postseason, Carolina and Florida will meet again on Saturday in the same location. So they win as long as they did, and they'll recover today and go ahead and do it. I know you're beyond a hockey fan. I mean, I would say hockey and football are your two favorite sports, and you're a purist. But is that a turnoff for people that are trying to get into the game? And please don't answer, I don't care, because that's what's hurt baseball, I think, at times when the purists say, I don't care if we grow the sport. This is the way it's done. Like, if that was the first game you ever watched as a sports fan, said, you know what, I'm going to tune into Carolina, Florida, Eastern Conference Finals, and then you're there 6 hours later going, what the hell was that?
Yeah, well, no, well, see, this is the thing. This is how I do believe it grows the sport, because it's not a chronic problem like in baseball where like game times are just, I mean, any game is just going to linger on and it doesn't matter. It's not quality. If you're going 4 overtimes, generally you're watching some very, very good hockey, because you don't last that long without putting the puck in the back of the net if you're playing sloppy, if you're playing disjointed. So I don't think there exists a point where you can get to 4 overtimes or 3 overtimes and sit there and say we've been watching 5 hours of bad hockey. And I think that's the point. So like if you go and you watch a game, you can feel that intensity whether you're in the stadium or watching it on TV. Especially the home crowd, it's like those near misses become magnified every single time it happens. It's like that puck is maybe just a few inches off the post or whatever, and all of a sudden you can see the agony and the ups and downs of every fan gets magnified because you're so close to the action too. That's the other great thing about watching hockey or being there in particular. So look, I definitely care about growing the game, and I do believe that's an important thing for the NHL to focus on. But I think this does grow the game because I think it's one of the most unique things of any sport. I mean, what other sport has this? I mean, baseball does in the sense that you can technically go 25, 30. You can go forever, really, inning-wise. Doesn't happen often. In playoff hockey, the stakes, I think, is what makes it so intense and I think so entertaining, and really it makes for great hockey. So in a way, no, I do not want them to ignore the growth of the game. I do want them to bring in new fans and casual fans, but I think this does help because, again, what you got to offer the fans something unique and something specific to your sport, and I think this checks all the boxes.
And baseball is so unique too because it's actually innings, right? So it's not quite as sudden. Hockey, you could carry play for 5 straight minutes. All of a sudden, the puck jumps over the defenseman's stick, and now the other team that's been dominated for 5 minutes has a 2-on-1, and they score the game-winning goal, or just someone makes a mistake in their own end. I mean, oftentimes,
last
goals
night,
are basically mistakes, right?
Think about it: 10 seconds left in the fourth overtime, and just a simple little mishandle of the puck. But at that point, though, I mean, these players are exhausted, so that adds levels to it and drama to it because it's like, all of a sudden, it's like players that normally maybe wouldn't make a mistake might. So,
yeah, and just look, Florida's just on some sort of magical roll, right?
Yeah.
They were down 3-1 to the Bruins since then. They're 8-1, and half of those 8 wins, 4 of them have come in overtime. And it seems like Matt Tkachuk is in the middle of everything. Like he's having one of the all-time great runs in hockey history, and it almost feels like they're going to win the cup because, I mean, how does Carolina rebound from this?
It's tough.
You're playing the only 7 periods,
tough.
right? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't need sleep. They could show up today to practice, and they're excited. Carolina's banging their head off the wall.
But here's the thing, though: 4 overtimes, 7 overtimes, 1 overtime, no overtimes. It only counts as 1 win.
True.
So, in a sense, yeah, I do think Carolina needs to. They need to dig deep down and kind of rebound from this. I think they have certainly a tall task ahead of them in order to do that. Thinking positively, they're down 1-0, and it's not a terrible situation. Obviously, last night you get so, and that again that adds to those layers. You get so deep into those overtimes. All of a sudden, it's like no one wants to be the one to make a mistake. No one wants to be the one to turn the puck over and be the GOAT, and not in the, the fashion that we're used to using GOAT, but in the traditional GOAT.
Lowercase GOAT.
Yes, lowercase GOAT. It's funny how that word has really taken on a new meaning over the last 15 years, or at least, yeah, I guess so, because, when did that term really become normalized?
I think Tom Brady had a lot to do with it, and Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
those are the two guys
Michael Jordan, post
then,
his career, though, because I think it became more popular more recently. So, after Jordan, yeah. So, retroactively with Jordan, because I don't know how many people were using GOAT in that sense. Because again, GOAT used to mean scapegoat. Who's the scapegoat? Mm-hmm. Who's the GOAT? Meaning hey, who's to blame in this situation? So yeah, it's pretty fascinating how that word has evolved. One of the
do you have a rooting interest in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now with 4 teams left? Or are you just throwing up in your mouth because in the East, the last 2 teams that eliminated the Bruins playing for the Eastern Conference Championship, you've got Bruce Cassidy's in Vegas. You got Tyler Seguin in Dallas. It's
well, look, I'm not
over the head with something.
I'm not bitter towards Bruce, so I guess if I had to pick, I wouldn't mind seeing it as seeing Vegas, and as I've said, I have I'm partial to the city. It's my home away from home, at least the last year and a half. It feels like, and you're right. Look, I want nothing to do with I hope those 2 teams go to Game 7 overtime and just never score. So eventually the NHL just has to call it and say, you know what, forget it. Vegas, you win. You both just go away. That's what I hope.
They can't figure it out. So
Yeah, they just can't figure it out.
You to go to the Stanley Cup final.
They just and at a certain point, you're just like, forget it. I give up. We're just, congratulations, Vegas. You did it in a reasonable amount of time. You two, get out of here. So that would be my ideal scenario. So I guess if I had to pick out of the East, I guess I'd be partly because they did eliminate the Bruins this year, and it would kind of make it feel a little bit better. I guess I'd be better with the Panthers going, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't really like either team. So
yeah, I mean, Matt Tkachuk is an infuriating guy, great hockey player, finalist for the Hart Trophy without question. And I don't think a lot of people love Rod Brindamore, who at some point last night, in between periods, had to take the suit and shirt off and work out for like 10 minutes, right?
He's Rod the Bod for a reason,
I like him, though. There's something about him that is so over the top and so, like, macho and hardo that it is kind of endearing.
I don't know. He kind of feels like he could be like a secondary, like, Bond villain. Not like the main Bond villain, but like some, like, henchman or something. I don't know. It's the face. It's kind of like the nose placement. I don't know what it is. There's a lot to it. But, yeah, I mean, and obviously the way Carolina play. And look, when I say I don't like either team, it's coming from me being a fan. All right, I don't have a disdain for the players. I don't wish anything ill upon Brindamore or anyone. But it's like they play like he coaches, and that's why he's a great coach. I mean, they're a very gritty, scrappy team that's talented offensively, and they tend to get under your skin. Especially as a fan, because you're like, oh wow, they always get away with things. Well, if you ask every fan in the history of fandom, every team other than theirs has always gotten away with everything. I mean, it's just how it is. Okay, you can obviously point to calls or plays that may have or should have gone another way, but I always just get a kick out of like how often, like every ref is out to get every single team. You know what I mean? I think it's funny in that sense. But anyways, yeah. My dislike for those two teams obviously comes from being a Bruins fan and some more recent history with the two. But if I had to choose, I guess Florida, I would kind of be like, all right, I can live with Florida going. Again, I would prefer to see probably someone out of the West between any of them. So
yeah, Vegas makes sense. I mean, I think we both like Bruce Cassidy. Thought he did a good job with the Bruins over the years. Got them to a Stanley Cup final. He seems like a pretty good guy. So yeah, rooting for him isn't that difficult.
Yeah, I can live with that. So, your boy LeBron.
Oh, I thought we weren't going to talk about
No, are you kidding me? Come on now. There's like two things going on right now. I think we're only going to talk about one of them. I mean, who cares about baseball? Sorry, baseball fans. I apologize. But,
there's a Taylor Swift concert.
There is. I've
weekend in Boston. Yep.
Got your tickets
at Gillette Stadium. Yeah. No. I'm all set with that. Although I do like her music, but I'm not. I'm going to go spend $2,000 to sit there or whatever. I mean, if it was U2 or Springsteen or Pearl Jam or Prince was still alive, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you know what? I'm still pissed off at U2 for putting that damn album on my phone without my permission, like 10 years ago. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that wasn't that cool. But,
yeah.
Well,
I don't know. It bugged me because it would always pop up. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I'm not a big U2 fan. I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? Like I have a, I'll always have a special connection with the first Super Bowl win for the Patriots and the halftime show because of the whole circumstance under everything. So I'll always appreciate U2 that way. But I was never, I was indifferent. I'm not going to go to a concert. No offense, but
well, I've been to so many. I can't remember how many I've been to. Springsteen too, and
I've seen both of them actually.
Yeah,
and in fact, the last time I saw Pearl Jam was almost 10 years ago because it was 10 years ago on my birthday. And it was part of the reason why I wasn't at the David Ortiz game because that was, I think, the weekend after. And I was not willing. I just spent money to go to that Pearl Jam concert on my birthday,
right,
October 15th. So remember, folks, October 15th, you feel like sending gifts or whatever, just let me know.
6 months after tax day.
Yeah, perfect. Very perfect. Very easy to remember.
6 months after Tim Thomas. Tim Thomas is April 15th.
Oh, wow.
Appropriately on tax day for
Wow.
Tim Thomas, I'm sure he likes paying those taxes.
Surprised. That's kind of strange that you know that right off the top of your head. But hey, whatever. I know Tom Brady's birthday off the top of my head. So, but anyways, I saw them 10 years ago, but I didn't go to that game because originally the tickets that my friends were going to get were pretty wildly priced, and then eventually they plummeted. But at that point, it was too late. And I don't necessarily miss it, John. I'm not upset. Like, I do kind of wish I was there to experience that. But John, if you remember, that was also the same Sunday as the New England Patriots versus the New Orleans Saints in one of the greatest regular season games for Brady and for this Patriots run over the last 20 years. So it all kind of worked out. I feel like, I got to see the concert on my birthday. I obviously got to see the game. It wasn't in person, but, I didn't have to deal with it. I was living in Amherst at the time. So that's, a good 2.5 travel and just getting to the stadium. And then, same thing getting out. And I was able to obviously watch Sunday Night Football from the comfort of my own home. So I guess it all worked out.
I remember the next day, Sports Talk Radio, I'm like, what do we lead with this?
Yeah.
Like, we got to lead with Ortiz. It's the American League Championship Series. But, man, that game against New Orleans was one of the best regular season games I can remember in the 20-year dynasty run, win or lose. I mean, it was just phenomenal. That game-winning touchdown pass that Brady threw was just exquisite. I can't remember. Was it Michael?
Malcolm Mitchell.
Okay, I forgot who had caught it, but my Lord, that throw was beautiful.
Well, and that's, and I don't want to get too derailed here, but
because I don't want to talk about LeBron. So
I know. Here you are. You're just pushing me in this direction. You're like, here, how can we make this conversation about Tom Brady? Well, you know what? You bring up Tom Brady and a great pass that he throws, and you know what? That's all you need from me. No, and that's one of those things where, like, I understand how people get enamored and awestruck by athleticism and these wild passes and throws and all this stuff, but like, man, it's something like that is as pure greatness as you're ever going to get from a quarterback in terms of placement, throwing. And look, this was kind of something that we haven't posted it yet. It is actually going to go up this afternoon, the latest episode of the Eye Test. We talked to Karen Garigian, who recently retired from the Boston Herald. And we were kind of, I was the producer in the background. I'm a very silent partner in all this, but they were talking about the final drive in particular of Super Bowl 51. And obviously not only the throws that were being made, but you go back and watch some of these throws and they're in the tightest of windows. I mean, some of these plays are almost perfectly covered, and that's not necessarily going to stick out from a wow factor in terms of, your casual fan base. A lot of what we're seeing nowadays, with the Twitter highlight era of how we look at football and how we cover football. But like, man, that was impressive. And going back to that game against New Orleans, that was another phenomenal example of just a perfect placement, perfect touch, perfect, just everything. And, in the most crunch of crunch times in that scenario, it was awesome.
It was pretty similar to the following year against Baltimore in the divisional round, the game-winning touchdown pass. It was like the same exact thing. I mean, again, this is a decade ago, so maybe it's not quite the same exact thing. But it's like he threw such a great timing route.
Oh, the one to the Brandon LaFell. I mean, LaFell kind of just all in one motion. It just kind of was going down, and it just dropped right into his bucket.
Like, I could have got that. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those passes that, like, just run to a spot, I'll hit you, and it's like 42 yards away, and the thing is just perfect. Like,
and that's the thing. It's like that, I think, gets taken for granted when you talk about Tom Brady, because, again, it's not necessarily flashy from the sense that falling to the ground and throwing. It's incredibly it's just great talent is what it is, and ability. So, all right, John, enough's enough.
I want to talk about Karen Garigian retiring, because I got to work with Karen for 5 years at the Herald, She is literally the best, and I wish her the best in retirement.
She is awesome, and I think we'll give if you want a time of day to do that, we can certainly do that. But John, stalling,
bring it on.
Yeah,
bring it on.
You're stalling enough. All right, LeBron James. I'm looking at it at the TV right now. LeBron James is down 2-0 to the Denver Nuggets, and he didn't have a bad game, but he didn't have a good game. I was trying to be nice, John, but apparently,
you are. But me, I'll criticize my guys.
You're going to be a little bit harsher.
Rodgers. Oh, absolutely. If he plays his normal game, they win.
Yeah,
the turnovers. He can't hit a three.
He's 0 for 19 or 1 for 19 or something crazy like that.
He's missed his last 19 3-point attempts in the postseason during the fourth quarter.
So
in the fourth, he's missed. Let me see if I can put this into English. He's missed 19 straight fourth quarter 3-point attempts in the postseason, and he's in the fourth quarter of this postseason, which is 14 games. Like, that's a long period of time. He's hit 1 3-pointer. Like, LeBron, I love you, but stop taking threes. You're not a good 3-point shooter. You're just not. You're not Steph Curry. You're not Ray Allen. And you know what? If you're the Denver Nuggets, you're like, LeBron's putting up a three. Thank the Lord. Let's go get the rebound and go the other way.
We'll give you that every single day because, guess what? There's a pretty good chance that he's not going to make it. And look, and then you see things like obviously the fumble on the windmill dunk. I mean, that's obviously that wasn't a good look, and especially, and it's like, look, I get it. I'm not going to sit. I know there's some haters out there that'll sit there and be like, why did you just go take the easy one? No, I mean, whatever. It's not a big deal. I don't care that you tried the windmill dunk, but how often do you see just a complete mishandle like that on a pretty open look?
Oh, people are like, this is why he was never in the dunk contest. Okay.
Yeah.
He ran away from the dunk contest because he was afraid he was going to mishandle a windmill. He just never wanted to go in the dunk contest because he never perceived himself as a dunker. For whatever reason, he should have done it once. Kobe did it once. Jordan was in it several times. It was a different time. But I thought he was pretty bad last night. I really do. I mean, he and Anthony Davis. Look, this is the weirdest part of last night's game. Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves scored 43 points combined. Anthony Davis and LeBron scored 40 points combined.
Yeah.
Like, that just shouldn't never happen, and it makes absolutely no sense. And if Davis and LeBron had been good, that series is tied 1 game apiece, despite, Jamal Murray scoring 23 points in the fourth quarter, which he seems to do every once in a while. I mean, he really lights it up. He gets hot from time to time. Well,
and that's the thing. Now they have to go to Denver, down 0-2. And
they're going back home. The first 2 were.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't
now they're going.
Me that much.
Yeah, you got me confused. I confused myself there for a second. I had that thought in my mind, and somehow I just flipped it. So yeah, they're going back home now. So at least they have that. But I don't know. I'll say this: at least LeBron's defense was pretty good last night, from what I saw. I mean, obviously, I was watching both. I thought he played pretty well against Jokic when he was manned up against him.
Yep.
But you don't want LeBron for, like, yes, his defense is obviously very very valuable, but you're not hoping for a Kevin Garnett defensive game from LeBron James. You're not going to settle for low scoring defensive shutdown. No, you need him to produce at an efficient level and drive this offense, whether it's scoring or just creating for others. So
he's asked to do a lot, so obviously he's going to have 4 rebound assists. Now, I like the idea of him on Jokic. I talked about it before the series started, because I think he's the only guy in the court that can read what Jokic is trying to do, because they're both at the highest level basketball IQ-wise, so that's great. But Jokic is such a huge guy. Like, I mean, he's 7 feet, 280. He's incredibly strong. He doesn't look it because he's got, like, thin arms, but he's just a monster. So, yeah, I think the only way to try to combat Jokic is just throw different bodies at him, and almost like a way to combat a great quarterback is just mix up your defenses, zone, man-to-man, occasional blitz. You can't just get those guys comfortable to just absolutely eat you alive.
Do you think what's your gut saying about Game 3 for them?
They'll win Game 3, I think, because again, they played okay in Denver. like, again, if LeBron and Anthony Davis are good last night, this series is 1-1. They didn't get blown out in either game. In fact, they had an 11-point lead in the second half last night. So they played okay, and their secondary players have contributed. I think going from Denver to LA is going to help them. You'll get a friendly whistle in game 3. Look, Phoenix lost the first 2 games in Denver. One of them was a blowout. They were able to win games in 3 and 4 in Phoenix. Now, there was one game where Devin Booker and Kevin Durant averaged combined for 83 points. I don't know if Davis and LeBron are going to do that, but I think the Lakers are a little deeper than Phoenix. So they can even this thing up. But who's going to win in Denver? Denver's 42-7 this year at home. They're 8-0 at home in the postseason. It's a tough place to play. They do have a home court advantage because of the altitude, and they're really good.
Yeah,
so I think the Lakers certainly can win game 3 and then see what happens in game 4.
And that's the thing that forces the Lakers to really be perfect at home and hope that they can somehow steal one at home, or on the road. But the reality of it is that it's not like they've been blown out at the end of the day. Obviously there are times when they're down big or whatever, but the end score, and I know it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, but closing the gap seems like it's a reasonable thing they can do. Doesn't mean they can do it, but at least it's reasonable. So tonight, obviously, the Celtics get a chance to at least split at home, which I kind of thought they were going to do. I kind of figured they would win game 1 and then maybe lose game 2. But nonetheless, they can go out and win tonight and be kind of right where I kind of figured they would be at home, certainly based on what their home record has been the last handful of playoff games. What do the Celtics do differently, aside from call better timeouts, to win the game tonight?
It normally starts on the defensive end, despite what Joe Mazzulla always says, that it starts on the offensive end. And look, there's a connectivity between offense and defense in basketball. We get that it's a free-flowing game, but it doesn't mean you have to only play offense and then not show up and play on the defensive end. You can do both. That's where it starts.
The Suns did that for years, and look what it got them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We're the best offensive team, and we play no defense.
By the way, Mike D'Antoni's name has been floated these coaches' openings. I astonished by that.
Well, the players love him.
Because, yeah. Well,
guys win MVPs when he's their coach. Nash did it twice. Harden did it once. I mean, he'd be a great guy to play for. I mean, you go down and get the shot off in the first 8 seconds, do whatever you want, and relax on defense, and we'll get knocked out in the second round. But yeah, I think it starts on the defensive end, getting off to a good lead. The problem with Miami with facing them is they just don't give up. Like they're like that, Chihuahua that's just nipping at you that just will not give up, and they're a little bigger than a Chihuahua. But yeah, I think on the defensive end, you've got to be engaged for the full 48 minutes. And again, that's really. Look, that's what they did in game 6 and 7 to beat Philadelphia, and Philadelphia kind of helped them along by, pooping their pants, especially at the end of game 6. So it starts on the defensive end, even this thing up. The problem is, Ian, the Celtics are 8-10 in their last 18 home playoff games.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the anti-Denver, right? I mean, that would be an interesting finals. The Celtics are great on the road. Denver never loses at home. What would happen in that?
It would go 7.
That's probably you probably would go 7 with the road team winning like 5 games.
Yeah,
some crazy thing. Yeah, and I think we're going to see long series. Maybe in the Western Conference, not so much because again, there's flawed teams out there in the NBA. There's no great team. There's no 17, 18 Warriors or
well, and as good as we think, and the thing is, as good as we think the Celtics are, and you just said it. I mean, they're mediocre at best at home. And that's something that's so baffling for a team that we think is as good as the Celtics. But I agree. I think they do bounce back today. I think you're going to see a tighter defensive effort because if you can look, I don't believe Miami is going to percent again. I do not believe Jimmy Butler is all of a sudden going to become a multi 3-point shooter. Each and every game hit a few 3-point shots, and I don't think they're going to shoot with as much efficiency from the 3-point line as they did in game 1. So with that said, I think the Celtics are their own worst enemy. And I think if they can settle down, play good, solid defense, they can control the game from there and really kind of take back control of the series. Because if you get a good win, like they did against Philadelphia in game 1, where they just kind of, kind of controlled the whole game, never really let them get within 8 or 10 points. It was just kind of a pretty dominating win. That's what you want to see tonight from Boston.
Yeah, I mean, exert your power. You are the more talented team. Miami may be tougher. Well, I think is tougher and mentally tougher as well. And yesterday, I guess at practice, Jimmy Butler was donned in a Mac Kachuk jersey.
Oh.
So, you know.
Well, it's something about South Florida right now. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I guess, Mac Kachuk went to high school with Jason Tatum.
Yeah, or they played. There was some crossover there that was kind of kind of random. It was like, oh wow, what do you know? How about that? Small world. So,
good high school, huh?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Trophy finisher.
Not quite like that one in Northern California that produced a couple pretty good athletes in their respective sports. So. The
Tom Brady always said, "I'll never be the most famous guy from my high school."
Yeah.
You know, because Barry Bonds went there. You know, I think the greatest quarterback and the greatest baseball player ever. Also, Lynn Swann went to school.
Yeah.
And David Bakhtiari, who's multiple-time All-Pro left tackle, who I'm sure is going to get released by the Packers and picked up by the Jets any day.
Just waiting for it.
Yeah, just waiting to join Ocean's 11, led by Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah, except for this is like the third sequel. So it's not quite as good, and it's a little lazily put together, and you just kind of go for the nostalgia, and that's about it. So that's going to do it for us here. We're going to say goodbye for the weekend. We will be back on Monday to maybe talk about potential doom and gloom for the Lakers being down 3-1, or a rebound and some potential excitement heading into Game 4. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Monday.